In the Amazon, danger does not always arrive with a heavy body, a visible fang, or the sound of something large moving through the leaves. Sometimes it comes as a thin vibration near the ear, almost too small to respect. The riverbank is warm from the day, the mud is soft with animal tracks, and rainwater sits in every hollow it can find. Tree holes, broken palm cups, flooded footprints, the shaded edges of blackwater pools. To most creatures, these are just wet places in a wet forest. To mosquitoes, they are nurseries, launch points, and the beginning of one of the most successful feeding systems on Earth. A mosquito does not look like an animal capable of changing history. It is fragile enough to disappear under a fingertip. Its wings seem impossibly thin. Its legs barely touch the skin. But that is exactly why it works. The mosquito's power does not come from strength. It comes from access. A jaguar must close distance and risk injury. A caiman must explode from the water and hold its prey with force. A venomous snake must commit to a strike. A mosquito needs only a few quiet seconds on warm skin, and the entire encounter can be over before the victim understands it has begun. As evening settles into the forest, every living body starts giving itself away. Breath releases carbon dioxide into the air. Skin gives off heat, moisture, and chemical traces from sweat and bacteria. A person walking through the rainforest may think they are silent if they stop moving, but to a mosquito, stillness means almost nothing. Breathing is already a signal. Warmth is already a signal. The chemistry on the skin is already a map. From a distance, a female mosquito can begin following the invisible trail of exhaled carbon dioxide. As she gets closer, body heat and odor help guide the final approach. The forest may look chaotic to us, but to her, it is full of directions. Only females bite, and that detail gives the whole event its biological edge. They are not taking blood out of aggression. They are taking it because eggs require nutrients that nectar alone cannot provide. Blood is reproductive fuel. The bite is not a murder attempt. It is motherhood reduced to a needlepoint. That is what makes the mosquito so strange and so dangerous. The female lands to complete her own life cycle, but pathogens have learned to use that act as transportation. Malaria, dengue, yellow fever, Zika, and chikungunya are not spread because the mosquito wants to spread them. They move because the mosquito gives them a bridge between bodies. The bite itself is more sophisticated than it looks. The proboscis is not just a simple needle. It is a set of tiny mouth parts working together to pierce, probe, and feed. Once it touches the skin, it searches for blood beneath the surface. The mosquito must work quickly because every second on a host is dangerous. A slap, a twitch, a brushing tail, a spider, a bird, a bat, or a dragonfly can end the entire mission. So the feeding system is built around stealth. Saliva enters the wound and helps keep blood moving while reducing the chance of an immediate defensive reaction. The body may notice the intrusion only after the mosquito has already lifted away, heavier than when she arrived. The famous itch is not really the bite itself. It is the body reacting after the fact. Proteins left behind in the saliva trigger the immune system. Histamine and inflammation turn a tiny puncture into a red, raised, irritating bump. In ordinary life, that feels like a nuisance. In the Amazon, it can be a warning that arrives too late. The skin acts as though the story is local, a little swelling, a small patch of heat, a place the hand wants to scratch. But the real danger may have already moved into the blood. The bite mark can fade in days, while something much larger begins inside. Malaria shows how terrifying that delay can be. The first visible sign may heal, The person may feel normal for a while, but if infected parasites entered through the bite of an Anopheles mosquito, the body has already become part of another life cycle. The parasites first multiply out of sight, then enter the bloodstream and invade red blood cells. Days or weeks after the original bite, the illness can rise like a second attack. Fever, violent chills, drenching sweats, weakness, pain, nausea, and, in severe cases, dangerous stress on organs and the brain. The mosquito is long gone, but the event it started is still expanding. That is the real horror of mosquito-borne disease. The wound is tiny, but the battlefield becomes the entire body. Blood is not just liquid inside veins. It is transport, oxygen delivery, immune defense, temperature control, and communication between organs. Once a pathogen enters that system, the conflict no longer belongs to the skin. It spreads through the internal machinery that keeps an animal alive. The mosquito does not need to tear flesh or overpower muscle. It only opens the door. Yellow fever carries a different kind of dread because it can move in phases. At first, it may resemble many tropical illnesses: fever, headache, weakness, nausea, body pain. Then, in severe cases, there can be a short, false recovery, a quiet moment where it seems the worst has passed. After that, the toxic phase can begin. The liver struggles. The eyes and skin can turn yellow. Bleeding may appear. Organs can fail. In a rainforest where color often signals life, fruit, flowers, birds, frogs, fresh leaves, yellow becomes a sign that the body's chemistry is breaking down from within. Dengue, Zika, and chikungunya add more layers to the same story. They are different diseases, with different effects, but they reveal the same basic danger. One tiny insect can connect many bodies across a landscape. In the wet season, breeding sites multiply. Puddles last longer. Flooded vegetation holds water. Human settlements, animal paths, river edges, and forest clearings create endless small pockets where larvae can develop. Warmth speeds the cycle. Moisture protects it. Blood keeps it moving. The Amazon does not need one giant monster to create danger. It can build risk out of thousands of small bodies rising from water. And yet, mosquitoes are not outsiders to the ecosystem. They are part of it. Their larvae become food for fish, aquatic insects, and other small predators. Adults are taken by bats, birds, spiders, dragonflies, and frogs. They are prey as well as threat, biomass as well as vector. That is what makes them more interesting than a simple villain. The mosquito is not evil. It is a small animal with an extremely successful design. The catastrophe comes from how perfectly that design can be exploited by parasites and viruses. This is why the mosquito belongs at the beginning of the story. It breaks the expectation that danger must be large to matter. The smallest animal in the episode carries the largest consequence. It turns breath into a signal, skin into a doorway, saliva into a tool, and an itch into the visible edge of something far more serious. In the Amazon, the most dangerous wound may not look dramatic at all. It may be a tiny red mark on the ankle, noticed only after the insect has vanished into the warm, dark air. By nightfall, the forest is alive with sound. Frogs calling from flooded ground, insects pulsing in the leaves, water dripping from vines, unseen wings passing above the river. Somewhere beneath the surface of a puddle, larvae hang and twist, waiting for their own transformation. Somewhere nearby, a female follows a breath plume through the trees. The Amazon does not need every threat to roar. Some land lightly, feed quickly, and leave behind only an itch, small enough to ignore, but large enough to change the entire body. In the Amazon, some dangers are frightening because they move, others are frightening because they do not. On the side of a tree trunk, where damp bark is broken by patches of moss, lichen, old scars, and thin green growth, a cluster of caterpillars can vanish into the surface so completely that the eye refuses to separate them from the wood. They do not hiss, strike, leap, or chase. They simply remain there, arranged like part of the tree's own texture, their bodies pressed together in a living patch of camouflage. A hand reaches for balance. A forearm brushes the trunk. A person leaning into the shade touches what looks like moss, and for a moment, nothing about the contact feels important enough to fear. That is what makes Lonomia so disturbing. It is one of the rare caterpillars on Earth with venom capable of killing an adult human, yet the first encounter can feel almost forgettable. There may be burning, stinging, or a sharp, irritated sensation, but it does not always announce the scale of what has happened. It can feel like a scratch from rough bark, a brush against a thorn, or the ordinary punishment of moving through a forest that is full of edges. The victim may step away, look at the skin, see redness, and keep going. In a place where bites, scratches, splinters, ant stings, and insect hairs are part of daily reality, that first mild pain is easy to underestimate. The caterpillar's danger begins in that gap between contact and concern. The body of the caterpillar is covered in branched spines, delicate-looking structures that seem more like fuzz than weapons. But each spine is a delivery point. When skin presses into them, the tips can break or inject venom into the tissue. This is not the dramatic bite of a snake or the deep puncture of a stingray spine. It is softer, spread out, almost accidental. The venom enters through many tiny points, and the animal itself barely needs to react. Its defense is passive in the most ruthless way. It punishes contact. Anything that presses against it becomes the attacker, even if the attacker never knew it had touched an animal at all. In evolutionary terms, this makes perfect sense. A caterpillar is a slow, protein-rich body moving through a forest full of hungry mouths. Birds, lizards, spiders, wasps, ants, rodents, and predatory insects all treat soft larvae as food if they can reach them. A caterpillar cannot outrun most of them. It cannot fly away yet. It cannot turn and fight like a mantis or vanish underwater like a frog. Its survival depends on two strategies: not being noticed and being a terrible mistake to touch. Lonomia combines both. Its camouflage lowers the chance of attack. Its venom raises the cost of contact. The result is an animal that looks harmless precisely because looking harmless helps it survive. But inside the human body, that defense becomes something much larger than a skin reaction. Lonomia venom can interfere with the blood's clotting system, the delicate balance that allows blood to stay fluid inside vessels but seal damage when tissue is injured. Clotting is one of the body's quiet miracles. Every day, it prevents small wounds from becoming disasters. It must activate quickly, but not everywhere. It must stop bleeding, but not block circulation. Lonomia venom disrupts that balance. The contact site may be small, but the target is not local skin. The target is hemostasis, the body's ability to control bleeding. That is why the escalation feels so cruel. Hours after what seemed like a harmless brush, the body can begin to reveal that something deeper has gone wrong. Bruising may spread beyond the original contact. Gums can bleed. Blood may appear in the urine. Small vessels that should remain sealed can begin to fail. In severe cases, bleeding can occur inside organs or even inside the brain. The kidneys, forced to process the consequences of damaged blood and systemic disturbance, can begin to fail as well. What began as a gentle touch against a tree becomes a body-wide crisis, not because the caterpillar tore the body open, but because the venom changed the rules by which the body keeps itself closed. This is one of the most unsettling forms of venom because it does not behave like the usual image of poisoning. Many people imagine venom as immediate pain, swelling, paralysis, or tissue destruction at the bite site. Lonomia's danger is quieter and more systemic. It turns the bloodstream into the scene of the attack. The person may not connect bleeding gums or dark urine to a fuzzy patch on bark touched hours earlier. That delay matters. Treatment exists, including specific antivenom in places prepared for these accidents. But antivenom depends on recognition. Medicine can only answer the right question if someone realizes what question the body is asking. If the victim does not remember the caterpillar or never saw it in the first place, the cause can hide behind its own subtlety. In parts of Brazil, these accidents are not just strange forest legends. They are a real medical problem, especially in rural areas where people work close to trees, orchards, firewood, and vegetation. Lonomia caterpillars may gather in groups, which makes contact more dangerous because a single hand can press into many spines at once. A person does not need to pick one up or threaten it deliberately. Leaning against the wrong trunk can be enough. The forest makes that mistake easy. Bark is not a clean surface. It is a crowded living wall carrying fungi, insects, eggs, larvae, mosses, lichens, ants, and hidden hunters. The human hand sees support. The ecosystem sees contact. Other venomous caterpillars in Amazonian regions add a more immediate version of this warning. Some hairy larvae, known locally under names such as bayuca, can leave intense pain, swelling, blisters, and irritation when their hairs embed in the skin and continue releasing defensive chemicals. These injuries may not carry the same famous hemorrhagic threat as lonomia, but they show the same evolutionary idea. Softness does not mean helplessness. The caterpillar body is exposed, slow, and edible, so evolution arms the surface itself. The skin becomes a minefield, the hairs become warning wires. The animal does not need to be fast if contact becomes punishment. There is a strange irony in how innocent these animals can appear. A snake warns the imagination before it strikes. A spider triggers instinctive unease. A scorpion looks armed even before it moves. But a caterpillar belongs to childhood memory, to leaves and transformation, to the familiar story of something small becoming a moth. The danger hides inside that expectation. Lonomia is not terrifying because it rejects the idea of a caterpillar. It is terrifying because it completes it in a darker way. A caterpillar is a temporary body built to survive long enough to change. Every day before metamorphosis is a vulnerable day, and vulnerability creates invention. Camouflage, spines, toxins, group resting, night feeding. These are not ornaments. They are survival tools. Seen closely, the animal is not a monster. It is a specialist. Its body is part of a larger forest logic, where almost every soft creature must either hide, taste bad, sting, burn, mimic something else, or reproduce fast enough to absorb losses. Lonomia's venom is extreme, but the pressure behind it is ordinary. The rainforest is crowded with mouths. A leaf-eating larva spends its life surrounded by predators that know exactly how valuable soft bodies are. The caterpillar answers with stillness, disguise, and chemistry, powerful enough to turn a careless touch into a medical emergency. That is why venomous caterpillars fit this theme so perfectly. They are the opposite of a dramatic attack. No chase, no visible wound, no cinematic strike. Just a brush against bark, a moment of mild burning, and a decision to ignore it. Then the forest's smallest contact begins to widen inside the body. The blood stops behaving as it should. The kidneys may come under stress. Hidden bleeding can begin far from the place where the skin first touched the spines. In the Amazon, danger does not always need to enter with force. Sometimes it waits in plain sight, disguised as moss, and turns the gentlest touch into a crisis the body cannot easily stop. In the darker edges of the Amazon world, not every predator waits in the open forest. Some live where the wild and the human-made begin to overlap, under fallen bark, inside hollow logs, behind stored wood, in the corners of sheds, beneath loose boards, or in the dry shadow of places that do not get disturbed often. There, in tangled silk that looks messy to the human eye, but precise to the spider that built it, a widow spider waits almost completely still. Latrodectus is not a charging hunter. It is small, shy, and built around patience. Its web is the trap, its venom is the insurance, and its body usually wants nothing to do with animals large enough to crush it. That is why the first contact can feel so unfair. A black widow bite is not usually the result of a spider seeking out a person or a large animal. It happens when the spider is pressed, trapped, or pinned against skin, inside clothing, under a hand, beneath a foot, or in a dark corner where something much larger suddenly invades its hiding place. The spider bites because the world has closed around it. Then, just as quickly, the moment can seem too small to matter. The bite may feel like a pinprick. Sometimes there are two faint red marks. Sometimes there is only mild local irritation, the kind of tiny insult a person might ignore in a forest already full of scratches, ants, thorns, and biting insects. That tiny beginning is the cleanest expression of its danger. The skin does not always tell the truth about what the venom is preparing to do. Unlike a venom that destroys tissue locally, black widow venom is aimed at communication. Its most important toxin, alpha-latrotoxin, acts at nerve endings where the body normally controls the careful release of chemical messengers. Under normal conditions, nerves speak with discipline. A signal arrives, a measured amount of neurotransmitter is released, and muscles respond in proportion. The body depends on that restraint. Movement, pain, sweat, blood pressure, digestion, and muscle tension all require controlled messages. The venom interferes with that order. What follows is not silence, like a paralytic venom, but overload. Nerve endings are pushed into releasing neurotransmitters in a massive, uncontrolled way. The body is not simply wounded at the bite site. It is forced to listen to its own nervous system, shouting. Within the first hour, the pain may begin spreading away from the original puncture. A bite on the hand can pull tension into the arm, then the chest, back, and abdomen. A bite on the leg can climb toward the hip and trunk. The spider itself may be hidden again, motionless in silk, while the victim's muscles begin tightening as if invisible hands are twisting them from the inside. The abdomen is one of the places where this becomes most dramatic. The muscles can cramp so hard that the abdominal wall turns rigid, sometimes mimicking the signs of a surgical emergency such as appendicitis. This is part of what makes latrodectism, the syndrome caused by widow spider envenomation, so confusing. The bite may be minor, the wound may be almost invisible, and yet the body can behave as though something far larger has happened. Pain arrives in waves. The back tightens. The chest can feel heavy, the belly locks. The victim may sweat intensely, become nauseated, tremble, or develop a pounding rise in blood pressure. The event starts on the skin, but the suffering belongs to the whole nervous system. For the spider, this venom makes perfect evolutionary sense. A widow spider is not strong enough to wrestle prey in the way a mantis or centipede might. It depends on silk, timing, and chemistry. Small insects stumble into the tangled web and become caught in lines they cannot understand. The spider approaches carefully, often from below or from the side, using silk to control the prey before delivering a bite. Against insects and other small animals, the venom helps overwhelm nervous control quickly enough that the spider can feed without being injured. It is a weapon designed for tiny battles in dark corners, not for dramatic confrontations with humans. But when that same chemistry enters a human body, the mismatch becomes terrifying. A dose meant to control prey can create days of pain in a creature thousands of times larger. The strange mercy is that death is rare in healthy adults, because the amount of venom injected is usually very small. Drop for drop, widow venom is extremely potent, but a spider is not a snake with large venom glands and deep fangs. It delivers only a tiny quantity. That is why the black widow's reputation can seem contradictory. It is dangerous, but not usually deadly, small, but capable of causing suffering that feels enormous. Most people survive, yet many who experience severe latrodectism describe it as one of the most punishing, non-lethal envenomations they can imagine. The danger is not always that the body will die. Sometimes the danger is that the body will remain painfully alive through every wave. The very young, the elderly, and people with underlying health problems face greater risk because their bodies may not tolerate the stress as easily. Severe pain, autonomic disturbance, high blood pressure, vomiting, and prolonged muscle spasm can turn a small bite into a serious medical event. Anti-venom exists in some regions and can shorten the ordeal in severe cases, but the problem is recognition. Many people do not immediately connect full-body cramps and abdominal rigidity to a bite they barely noticed. They may blame food poisoning, heat, infection, strain, or some unknown internal problem. The spider's first advantage, the smallness of the bite, continues to hide the cause long after the venom has begun working. This is where the black widow becomes more than a simple horror symbol. It shows that venom is not only about killing. Venom can be control. It can be chemistry that turns the prey's own body against itself. Insects trapped in the web are not defeated by brute force. They are defeated by lines of silk and molecules that disrupt their internal messages. A human bitten by accident experiences the same principle at a much larger scale. The spider does not need to chew through flesh or inject a large volume. It only has to introduce the right compound into the right system, and the nervous system does the rest. There is a quiet ecological truth in that. Small predators survive by being efficient. They cannot waste energy on open combat. They build architecture from silk, use darkness as cover, avoid unnecessary conflict, and save their strongest weapon for moments when contact becomes unavoidable. The widow spider's world is not a battlefield of noise and pursuit. It is a hidden geometry of threads, shadows, vibrations, and waiting. Every tremor in the web carries information. Every trapped insect becomes a message moving through silk. The spider does not need eyes like a cat or speed like a wasp. Its web feels the world for it. That makes the bite even more unsettling. The animal is not monstrous in behavior. It is not looking for drama. It is doing what a small, vulnerable predator must do: hide, wait, defend itself, and use chemistry with terrifying precision. But to the larger animal that presses against it by mistake, the result can feel wildly disproportionate. One tiny puncture, a small red mark. Then the body begins to cramp, sweat, tighten, and surge with pain. The entry point is almost nothing. The escalation is everything. In the Amazon's wider story of hidden danger, the Black Widow belongs to the shadows rather than the open trail. It is a reminder that some of the most painful encounters begin not with an attack, but with accidental pressure in the wrong place. A hand reaches into darkness. A body leans against stored wood. Fabric presses a spider against skin. The bite comes and goes so quickly it can be dismissed as nothing. Then, within the body, the nervous system begins to flood itself with signals it cannot easily stop. Minimum entry pain, maximum escalation. That is the Black Widow's true horror. Not a wound that looks terrible, but a tiny bite that teaches the entire body how loudly nerves can scream. In the Amazon, the most dangerous snake is not always the one that makes the forest recoil. It may not be thick-bodied, heavy-headed, or coiled in an obvious warning posture beside the trail. Sometimes it is a slim band of red, black, yellow, and shadow moving quietly through leaf litter, half hidden beneath fallen palm fronds and wet roots. A coral snake does not dominate the scene the way a viper does. It does not need the blunt triangular head, the raised body, or the explosive strike that humans instinctively understand as danger. Its warning is written in color, but its real threat is written in time. Micrurus coral snakes carry some of the most serious neurotoxic venoms found among Amazonian snakes, yet their bite can be dangerously deceptive. Everything about the first moment can feel smaller than it should. Their fangs are short, fixed at the front of the mouth, and not built like the long folding hypodermic fangs of a viper. The bite may be shallow, the pain may be mild. Sometimes the person bitten does not even register the event clearly, especially if the snake was stepped on in leaves, handled by mistake, or brushed during work in vegetation. There may be no dramatic swelling, no spreading black bruise, no torn flesh, no immediate sign that the body has been entered by one of the quietest weapons in the forest. That lack of drama is the danger. A viper bite often announces itself through tissue damage, swelling, burning pain, and a wound that forces attention back to the skin. A coral snake bite can leave the victim searching for evidence and finding almost nothing convincing. The skin may look too normal for the mind to accept the seriousness of the event. In a rainforest full of scratches, insect bites, thorn punctures, and stinging plants, a small mark can be mentally filed away as another minor accident. But coral snake venom is not trying to destroy the skin. Its most frightening work begins deeper, where movement itself is controlled. The venom acts on communication between nerves and muscles. Every movement in the body depends on signals crossing tiny junctions, passing instructions from nerve endings into muscle fibers. A blink, a swallow, a breath, a step, the lift of the head, the closing of the hand. All of it depends on that invisible conversation. Coral snake venom can interfere with that system, slowly turning command into silence. The victim may still be conscious. The mind may still understand what needs to happen. But the body begins losing its ability to answer. This is why the delay is so unsettling. For the first hour or several hours, the world may still seem manageable. The trail is still there. The forest still smells of wet leaves and soil. The bite site may not look like an emergency. Then the first signs can arrive in places that feel strangely disconnected from the wound. Eyelids begin to droop. Vision may blur. Speech can become thick or slurred. Swallowing may grow difficult, as if the throat has forgotten the rhythm of a simple act. Weakness spreads downward. The face changes before the legs do. The snake may be long gone beneath the leaves, but the venom is still moving through the body's control system. The most dangerous moment comes when the muscles of breathing begin to fail. Breathing is so constant that the body hides its complexity from us. The diaphragm, the muscles between the ribs, the nerves that drive them, the brainstem patterns that keep the rhythm alive. All of this works in the background until something interferes. Coral snake envenomation is terrifying because it can threaten that background machinery without causing the kind of obvious wound people expect from a deadly animal. The skin may remain calm while respiration becomes the battlefield. The quietest bite in the forest can become a slow shutdown of the very muscles that keep air moving. This is not because coral snakes are aggressive animals searching for victims. In most encounters, they would rather avoid conflict entirely. They spend much of their lives hidden in leaf litter, soil cavities, root tangles, burrows and shaded ground cover, moving through the low, secret architecture of the forest. Their bodies are built for slipping through narrow spaces where larger snakes cannot move as easily. Many feed on other reptiles, including small snakes and lizards, turning venom into a tool for subduing prey that could fight back with teeth, coils, or escape speed. For a coral snake, venom is not a performance. It is a survival instrument, used in a world where a thin-bodied hunter must control dangerous prey quickly and then disappear again. The bright bands are part of that survival strategy too. Red, yellow, and black are not decoration in the human sense. They are biological signage. In nature, bold colors often function as warning systems, telling predators that an animal may be venomous, poisonous, painful, or simply not worth testing. This is called aposematism, and in coral snakes it has become so successful that other snakes mimic the pattern. Some harmless or less dangerous species wear similar colors, borrowing the fear created by the real thing. The old rhyme, "Red touches yellow, kills a fellow," comes from that attempt to read danger through pattern. But in tropical America, it is not a rule anyone should depend on. The safer truth is simpler. A brightly banded snake in coral snake country should never be picked up, tested, or treated like a puzzle. That confusion between warning and mimicry is one reason coral snakes remain so dangerous despite their reluctance to bite. A person sees a small, beautiful snake and assumes beauty means harmlessness. Another person thinks they know the rhyme and tries to identify it too closely. Someone working barefoot or reaching into leaf litter never sees the snake at all. Most serious encounters begin not with the snake hunting a human, but with pressure, handling, or accidental contact. The coral snake's first choice is usually escape. The problem is that a defensive bite, even one that looks minor, can carry consequences out of all proportion to the wound. There is a strange elegance in how this animal fits the Amazon. The forest is full of loud survival strategies: frog calls, monkey alarms, macaw wings, falling branches, splashing fish, the sudden eruption of insects from a disturbed nest. But beneath that noise, there is another layer of life built on silence. Animals move under leaves, inside logs, through roots, behind bark, below mud, and along trails that humans barely notice. The coral snake belongs to that hidden layer. It is not trying to rule the forest by force. It survives by being hard to find, costly to attack, and unmistakable to animals that have learned what its colors mean. That is why it fits this theme through time rather than intensity. The bite may not look like much. The pain may not force panic. The skin may not swell into an obvious warning. For a while, the body may seem almost untouched. Then the signs begin to move inward: the eyelids, the tongue, the throat, the chest. The danger is not the violence of the strike, but the delay between contact and collapse. The coral snake turns the body's own wiring into the scene of the attack. In the Amazon, not every deadly thing needs to make a mess. Some of the most serious threats leave almost nothing to look at. A few small punctures, a beautiful snake vanishing under leaves, and then hours of silence before the body begins to lose its voice, its swallow, its strength, and finally its breath. The coral snake is a warning that danger is not always measured by pain. Sometimes it is measured by how quietly the body stops obeying. In the Amazon shallows, the danger can be lying exactly where the water looks safest. A sandy bank slopes gently into the river. Sunlight breaks across the surface in bronze flashes. Small fish move between submerged leaves. Insects touch down and lift away, and the mud holds the soft prints of birds, capybaras, dogs, fishermen, and children moving through the edge of the water. Nothing in the scene looks violent. There is no fin cutting the surface, no open jaw, no sudden swirl. The river seems calm enough to step into, and that is where the freshwater stingray becomes frightening, because it is not waiting to attack. It is waiting not to be noticed. Potamotrigon stingrays are masters of disappearing into the riverbed. Their flattened bodies settle into sand, silt, and fine mud until the outline almost vanishes. A thin layer of sediment can cover the back. The eyes remain raised just enough to watch. The spiracles behind them pull water across the gills, while the body stays pressed to the bottom, wide and still, shaped less like a hunter in motion than a piece of the river itself. In the Amazon, camouflage is not only for animals hiding from predators in trees. It also belongs to creatures lying beneath your feet, using silence and sand as protection. The stingray's body is not built for chasing humans or confronting large animals. It feeds by searching along the bottom for small fish, worms, crustaceans, mollusks, and other hidden prey, using senses tuned to the close world of mud and water. Like sharks and other rays, it can detect faint electrical signals produced by living bodies, a sense that helps it find food where vision is limited. In murky water, where light breaks apart and distance disappears, that ability matters. The river bottom is full of life buried just below the surface, and the stingray is designed to read it. But the same animal that hunts quietly can defend itself with shocking force. The injury happens when a foot lands on the buried body. The ray does not need to choose a victim. It reacts to pressure. In one fast defensive movement, the tail whips upward and drives a venom-coated barb into the foot, ankle, or lower leg. The moment is often over before the person understands what happened. One step touches soft sand. The next becomes a puncture, a tearing shock, and a pain that seems far too large for the amount of movement that caused it. The barb is the cruel part of the design. It is not smooth like a needle. It is serrated with backward-facing edges that can bite into flesh like a harpoon. When it enters, it can cut deeply. When it is pulled out, the serrations can widen the injury, tearing tissue on the way back, and sometimes leaving fragments behind. Venom-producing tissue associated with the spine adds another layer to the trauma. This is why a stingray wound is not just a puncture. It is mechanical damage combined with chemical assault, delivered into a part of the body that is difficult to rest, difficult to keep clean, and constantly needed for walking. The pain can escalate almost immediately. Survivors often describe stingray pain as overwhelming, burning, throbbing, and spreading from the wound through the limb. The body reacts as if the river has driven fire into the flesh. Swelling builds. The skin around the puncture can grow tense and hot. The wound may bleed heavily at first, then become a deep, angry opening that refuses to behave like an ordinary cut. In a forest full of venomous animals, the stingray is unusual because the suffering begins with blunt clarity. There is no long, mysterious delay like a coral snake bite. There is no mild itch hiding a later fever like a mosquito. With the stingray, the body understands immediately that something serious has entered it. And yet, the worst part may not be only the first hours. The venom can contribute to tissue damage, and the wound itself can become a long-lasting problem. Necrosis may develop around the injury as tissue breaks down. Healing can stretch across weeks. In severe cases, dead tissue may need to be removed, and the wound can leave lasting scars. The foot, which usually disappears from attention because it carries the body so automatically, suddenly becomes the center of survival. Every step reminds the victim that the riverbed has left something behind. Warm, fresh water makes the injury even more dangerous. A deep puncture in the Amazon is not a clean laboratory wound. It is driven through skin in water filled with bacteria, sediment, plant matter, animal waste, and microscopic life. Infection is not a side detail. It is one of the major threats. The barb opens a path deep into tissue, and the river supplies organisms that can turn injury into a spreading medical crisis. This is why stingray wounds are feared so intensely in riverside communities. The pain is immediate, but the infection risk can keep the danger alive long after the ray has fled. For people who live beside Amazon rivers, this is not exotic trivia. It is practical knowledge. Fishermen, children, washerwomen, boatmen, and families moving through shallow water understand that the most dangerous animal may be the one they never see. Piranhas have the reputation, caimans have the teeth, snakes have the warning shape. But stingrays injure people because they occupy the exact place where people step. They are not dramatic predators of humans. They are hidden bodies in shared space. That makes them harder to fear properly, because fear usually needs a visible target. The local answer is simple and wise. Do not step blindly. Drag the feet. Shuffle through the sand instead of lifting and planting the sole. The movement sends pressure and disturbance ahead through the riverbed, giving a buried ray time to move away. It is not a perfect shield, but it respects the animal's real behavior. Stingrays do not want confrontation, they want distance. The shuffle turns a surprise attack into a warning, and in the Amazon, that small change in movement can decide whether a river crossing ends quietly or becomes weeks of pain. There is something almost tragic in the stingray's role. It is not evil, it is not aggressive. It is a soft-bodied bottom dweller with ancient defensive equipment, trying to survive in a river full of predators, pressure, and movement. Its camouflage protects it from being seen. Its barb protects it when camouflage fails. The same system that saves the ray from being crushed creates one of the most feared injuries in the human communities that share its water. Nature does not design weapons around human fairness, it designs them around survival. So the freshwater stingray earns its place in this story through a different kind of escalation. The mosquito begins with an itch and hides disease. The coral snake begins with quiet and hides shutdown. The black widow begins with a pinprick and hides nervous overload. The stingray begins with one careless step and turns the river itself into the weapon. Sand hides the body, pressure triggers the tail. The barb tears, venom burns, Tissue swells, bacteria enter, and healing becomes a long negotiation with pain. In the Amazon shallows, the water can look peaceful right up to the instant it is not. A foot enters the sand, a buried shape reacts. The tail snaps upward from a place no one was watching. And in that single movement, the calm edge of the river becomes hours of agony, weeks of healing, and a lesson every riverside community already knows. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the water is not what swims toward you, but what was under you the whole time. In the Amazon, the final warning does not need to kill to be unforgettable. It waits near the base of trees, in the heavy shade where buttress roots rise from the forest floor like old walls. Leaf litter gathers in damp layers, fungi soften fallen wood. Vines cross the ground in dark cords, and the air holds the smell of rain, soil, bark, and living decay. Down there, where every step disturbs ants, beetles, termites, spiders, and hidden larvae, one insect carries a reputation larger than its body. The bullet ant is not the biggest predator in the forest. It does not tear flesh like a jaguar or drag prey underwater like a caiman. But it has mastered one of the oldest defensive languages in nature, pain so severe that memory becomes part of the wound. Paraponera clavata is large for an ant, often close to 3 centimeters long, with a dark, heavy body that looks more like a small, wingless wasp than the ordinary ants people brush from a table. It moves with a deliberate confidence, not frantic, not random, but purposeful along trunks, roots, and forest paths near its nest. Colonies are often associated with the base of trees, where workers patrol the ground and lower vegetation. They are not mindless attack machines. Most of the time they are foragers, hunters, nest defenders, and members of a social system built around labor, chemical communication, and territory. But when that territory is threatened, the insect becomes something else entirely. The bullet ant gives warning before it strikes. Workers can produce a harsh stridulating sound, a kind of biological alarm made by rubbing body parts together. It is not a roar, but in the scale of the forest floor it is enough, a signal that the invisible border has been crossed. This matters because the bullet ant is not trying to waste venom. Venom is expensive to make. Stinging is dangerous. Any close encounter with a larger animal could end with the ant crushed into the mud. So the warning is practical. Leave, and the conflict ends there. Ignore it. Step too close. Press a hand into the wrong root, or disturb the nest, and the next message is delivered through the stinger. The sting has become legendary because it sits at the top of the Schmidt Sting Pain Index, the highest rating given to any insect sting. Justin Schmidt, the entomologist who created that scale, famously described bullet ant pain as pure, intense, brilliant pain, comparing it to walking over burning charcoal with a nail driven into the heel. The name itself comes from people who survived it and reached for the closest human comparison. It feels like being shot. That description sounds exaggerated until the biology is understood. This is not ordinary irritation. It is not a quick flash of pain followed by swelling and recovery. The bullet ant sting is built to take 1 second of contact and stretch it across hours. The key agent is ponerotoxin, a peptide in the venom that interferes with voltage-gated sodium channels in nerves. These channels are part of how the body creates electrical signals. Normally, a pain signal is controlled by timing. Channels open, the signal fires, channels close, and the nerve resets. That rhythm allows the body to detect injury, locate it, and respond. Ponerotoxin disrupts that rhythm. It can keep nerves firing in a way that turns pain from a warning into a repeating command. The result is not only that the sting hurts, It is that the body keeps being told to hurt, again and again, long after the stinger is gone. This is why the escalation feels so different from many other stings. A bee sting may burn hard, swell, and then slowly settle. A wasp sting can be sharp and aggressive, but for most people the peak does not last a full day. The bullet ant is known for waves, burning, throbbing, all-consuming pain that can continue for up to 24 hours. The limb may tremble, the muscles may shake uncontrollably. Swelling can build around the sting site, and multiple stings can make the affected limb feel temporarily useless, as if the nervous system has been flooded beyond its ability to organize movement. It is not simply pain as sensation, it is pain as occupation. For the ant, this makes brutal evolutionary sense. A worker defending a colony does not need to kill a mammal, a bird, or a careless primate. It only needs to make the threat leave and remember. Pain is one of the most efficient teachers in nature. A predator may survive the encounter but avoid that tree base forever. A monkey that disturbs a nest once may learn not to do it again. A ground-foraging animal that receives the sting does not need a second lesson. The venom turns defense into education, and the forest is full of creatures that survive because other animals remember them. The bullet ant's power is even more striking because it belongs to a social insect. One ant is already enough to command respect. A colony turns that respect into a boundary. Ant societies are built on cooperation so deep that the individual worker is almost like a moving cell in a larger body. Some forage, some defend, some maintain the nest. Chemical trails and contact signals carry information through the group. When danger comes close, the colony does not need to think in the human sense. It responds through millions of years of inherited rules: detect, warn, defend, punish, survive. This is also why the bullet ant has a place in the traditions of the Satere Maue people of the Brazilian Amazon. In a coming-of-age ritual, boys place their hands into woven gloves lined with live bullet ants and endure the stings while dancing. The ritual is often repeated many times before a young man is considered to have completed the test. From the outside, this can look almost impossible to understand, but inside its cultural context, the sting becomes more than pain. It becomes endurance, discipline, identity, and proof that the body can pass through suffering without surrendering to it. The same venom that teaches predators to retreat becomes, in human hands, a controlled confrontation with fear. The ant itself remains what it always was, a forest animal defending a life system. It does not know its place on a pain index. It does not know the stories humans tell about bullets, fire, or nails. It patrols roots, climbs bark, searches for food, responds to vibration, scent, and threat. Its world is not built from drama. It is built from chemical trails, nest chambers, brood, workers, territory, and the daily pressure of survival. But the human body experiences its venom as something almost personal because pain is intimate. A bite or scratch can be observed from the outside. Bullet ant pain takes over from within. It makes the victim feel the nervous system directly, violently, minute after minute. That is why the bullet ant works as the perfect finale. It does not need the body count of mosquitoes, the hidden bleeding of lonomia, the respiratory danger of coral snakes, the nervous overload of black widows, or the tearing wound of a stingray. Its horror is simpler and cleaner. It proves that venom does not have to kill to be extreme. Sometimes the most memorable weapon in the rainforest is not the one that ends life, but the one that forces life to feel every second. At the base of the tree, the ant continues moving through the wet leaf litter. The forest closes around it again, frogs calling, insects pulsing, roots breathing moisture out of the soil. The warning sound is small. The body is small. The contact lasts only a moment. But if the sting lands, that moment can become an entire day. In the Amazon, the final lesson is not always death. Sometimes it is pain stretched so long that the body measures time by every wave.